Well, Joe, if the Asian session and the start to the European session are any indication, it's going to be a tough start stateside as well. We saw heavy selling in Asia overnight, more than 3% worth of losses for multiple key indices in Japan, Korea, Hong Kong. All the major markets in those regions saw losses of more than 3%, a combination of fears stemming from the inflation situation stateside and rising interest rates paired with the worsening COVID situation in mainland China.
Hey everybody, it's Eri from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan. And as you heard, Asia had a bad day on the markets. The Nikkei lost a little over 3%. And the futures for the market indicator of how the S&P will open up on Wall Street has begun at a loss of 500 points just a moment ago. Clearly, negative sentiment pushing everything down. In the United States, gas prices topped over $5 a gallon over the weekend, adding to the falling consumer confidence. In this video, we're going to look at two alarming facts that are weighing in heavy on crypto. This is the freezing of assets on Celsius. This is really alarming. Nexo has come in and offered to buy their assets. They have declined. We also have a little bit of trouble happening with another stablecoin. It's depegging, and wow, a scary amount of Tether withdrawals. And of course, the market. How long can we expect to be in a bear market? All right, everybody, let's go. I woke up this morning and this was the first email that I read in my inbox. We are writing with a very important message for our community. This is coming from Celsius. Due to extreme market conditions today, we are announcing that Celsius is pausing all withdrawals, swap, and transfers between accounts. We are taking this action to put Celsius in a better position to honor over time its withdrawal obligations. What's happening is that there is a huge liquidity crunch. Now, you may not have assets on this particular platform, but I want to explain to you why this is so serious. 1.7 million people park their crypto on Celsius to earn yield. The action to freeze everything was taken to try to stabilize liquidity. Founder Alex Mashinsky, who is one that engages with the community regularly, in fact, probably more than any other except for Charles Hoskinson of Cardano. He too also engages on a regular basis, but we haven't heard anything from Alex. And I think in a time of crisis like this, working off of just a blog for the last 15 hours is, I think, setting in more panic. Yes, when you take a look at, for example, in the past when there have been hacks on exchanges, those founders that have come out and talked right away to the community has turned out, I think, to be a very good way to handle it. So I'm a little concerned that as for someone who regularly engages is not engaging, it's concerning. The Cell token dropped 70% in just 1 hour, touching, you can see, just over 14 cents. So we're going to have a look at that thread of tweets that came from Nexo, who has offered to buy the crypto assets. Now, you could call this a vulture move, or it could be a move, as they say, they are just trying to help the ecosystem. I'm not so sure, but the offer is going to stand until the 20th of June. And thus far, it looks like Celsius is saying no thanks. But let's take a look at those tweets. Keep in mind, while I read this, that Nexo is a extremely competitive rival. So they start out the tweet with, all the Nexo products are operating normally: borrow, earn, exchange, and the Nexo card. As always, deposits and withdrawals are processed instantly so that all of you can make necessary arrangements in the latest downturn in the markets. Goes on to continue the conversation here. Nexo is the first and only blockchain finance company to have real-time audit and its custodial assets, showing that the company's assets exceed its liabilities at all times, which assets to Nexo's liquidity and ability to meet all of its obligations. The Nexo team has never cheered for the failure of a blockchain business, but we have warned that operating a sustainable business model based on a prudent risk management is what differentiates Nexo and others, and allows us to maintain financial stability in any market circumstances. As a sign of goodwill, so here it is that you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. As a sign of goodwill and in an attempt to support the digital asset ecosystem in difficult times, yesterday we reached out to the Celsius team to offer our support, but our help was refused. We firmly believe that much can be done to help Celsius clients. Nexo is in a solid liquidity and equity position to readily acquire any remaining qualifying assets of Celsius, mainly their collateralized loan portfolio. We are putting together an offer to Celsius to that accord, and we'll communicate it publicly. That is pretty amazing. They're going to communicate it publicly. Well, even if it's a vulture move, it's a good move, right? Because that's the last thing the market really needs, is to have a falling out like we saw with Terra Luna. But that just doesn't end here. We've got a little bit of problem happening with the Tron stablecoin. It has depegged. Let's take a look at that. The Tron stablecoin, USDT, actually slipped to 98 cents. Stablecoins are not supposed to slip at all. So it also has everybody very much worrying. In the effort to protect the funds of short sellers on Binance, they deployed $2 billion. And this DAO also injected $800 million to defend that USDT stablecoin peg. They say that they are close to being now 300% collateralized over and above what the each token is worth. So, it's just all eyes on watching what's happening, because the lack of liquidity and also the sentiment where people can make a run on a particular asset because they feel insecure. And it looks like that's what we're seeing on Tether. Let's take a look at that. This is the one-day chart of Tether, and a stablecoin just shouldn't have this much volatility. It is sitting right now being at the peg of 0.9978, which is I think reasonable, but it still isn't perfect. And we do see a lot of people moving out of this particular asset. So this is a big concern. Let me show you what's floating around on Twitter. About an hour ago, we see that the redemptions are just pouring into Bitfinex. This is just one wallet that had 180 million redemptions in just 1 hour. Blockchain Backer posted this about 40 minutes ago, where you can see that Tether hasn't been pegged to its dollar for well over a month. Circling back to Celsius, Tether is the lead investor in Celsius. And in the event that Celsius becomes bankrupt, enters liquidation, or is otherwise unable to repay its obligations, any eligible digital asset used in the earn service or as collateral under the borrow service may not be recoverable. And you may not have any legal remedies on rights in connection with Celsius obligations to you, other than your rights as a creditor of Celsius under the applicable laws. So this is what has the market so shaky. Be prepared to see a lot of FUD articles, a lot of Bitcoin is dead. Don't worry about that. I want you to keep an eye on the Fed, because there was a representative from BlackRock that was just on Bloomberg talking about what if Jerome Powell and the Fed committee decide to raise more than a half a point in the interest rate hike. So we have about half a point baked in. But should there be a real aggressive effort like a full basis point rate hike this week, I want you to listen to what the BlackRock representative believes would happen.
What would a 75 basis point move from the Fed? I know it's not consensus at this point, but if you did and were to get 75 basis point, if not this month, then in July, what would that mean for risk assets?
Well, I think that would send panic signals across global markets, right? Because so far they've signaled 50 bips back to back and potentially more in September and beyond. But 75 bips was not really kind of talked about. So if they keep that door open in the same way that ECB keeping 50 bips open, and that sends kind of panic across markets last Thursday, we certainly could see a repeat of that.
In no way was this video trying to bring you down at all. I just wanted to be very realistic today. And how long will a bear market last? Well, I believe in cycles. And granted, this time is not the same as any previous time in history, but cycles still play out. We've had 14 bear markets since 1942, some of them lasting as short as 2 months, with an average of around 1 year. So what I want to do is just repeat what I said in yesterday's video. Keep your eye on the Fed. All right, everybody, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.